opinions you're about to hear on this show are strictly those of the panel.
The following program is rated TV MA LSV. It contains strong language, sexual situations, and violence. It is intended only for mature audiences. The following.
Hello. Welcome to Team Shit Show 2.0. And tonight's guest is Christian Lamar. So I want to say thank you for joining me tonight. And I hope that you can open some people's eyes about what's going on with you. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Janet, for having me so much. I really appreciate it. Yes, I can.
So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Sure. My name is Christian Lamar. Many people are familiar with me because I ran for the AZ state representative in 2022. I had a contested primary in 2022. I won my primary, and then I got to the general election. I was on the same ballot as Carrie Lake. If many people remember the 2022 election in Arizona, in Maricopa County. We know what happened in 2022. The election was stolen. But after that, I was elected on the AZ GOP executive committee as a member at large, and fighting very hard to protect our elections. And by day, my day job, I've been working in information technology for 25 years. I'm born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Really, I would say, the reason that I decided to get involved in politics is really just from a personal experience, through the criminal justice system. My mom is a retired court clerk, so I've always been interested in the courts or government in general. My dad is a retired Vietnam veteran. And then I have a little bit of family history. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. My aunt is a retired colonel from the Army. So yeah, I mean, a little bit of family roots. I just decided after seeing what was happening in our country that I would get involved in politics. I actually didn't really even think that would even ever occur or happen, but it ended up happening. And really from there, right after the 2022 election, really this dates back to 2020 because we were dealing with problems with our elections from the 2020 election in Arizona.
Yeah.
But right after the 2022 election, I pressed very hard on the Arizona state legislature. For those that don't know, the state legislature is in Republican control to protect our elections. And there were a lot of rhinos inside the party that just did not want that. And so they, because rhinos continuously asked me to stop, essentially holding the legislature accountable for not protecting our elections, the rhinos expelled me from the party. And so many people saw that video of me where I explained that, and that video actually got 10 million views off of it. And, ever since then, even to this day, I actually signed up over 350 new precinct committeemen inside of just Maricopa County alone, several others around Arizona. But even to this day, the rhinos inside the party, which is the Maricopa County GOP, they're still talking about me. There are 20 districts in Maricopa County across the whole county. Of course, for those that don't know, Maricopa County is the largest Republican county in the United States, with the most populous as far as Republican voters in Maricopa County in the United States and the entire country. And so 20 districts, and almost every single district is still talking about me. So So
Do
that's
you
my
think
story.
that you would ever run again? Now that it seems like actual cleaning house is happening in this new
Um,
administration?
unless I get a call, unless I really see a big sign that tells me that, that I should consider running, and that would be getting a call from Trump himself.
Yeah.
Would I actually decide to run again? Because at that point, I would ask for his endorsement, and that would pretty much cement
Oh,
me
yeah, for sure.
being able to uh, win the election because of just the overwhelming support that I would get.
Well, one thing I've found out from just talking to a few people that have run for office, even city clerk or any little job like that, that it's the harassment they go through from the opposite side or other people running for the same position, and the vitriol that goes on, and it's in your own community. And they said that they would never recommend anyone running unless you have no family, no friends, you have nothing. They
Mhm.
just said it's just not worth it. Now, the few that did do it twice and they did win, they said that they're going to do their term and they won't run again. That because not everybody's got the fortitude that it takes apparently
Yeah.
to deal with that kind of lifestyle. So a lot of this, since I started getting involved, listening to people, talking to people, like I met you in Spaces on X and listening to it, I really was intrigued by the type of person you have to be to stand there and listen to some of that stuff and not, just want to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because man, I've been just watching some of the Senate hearings, getting all his cabinet through, and I couldn't do it. I can tell you right now, I do not have what it takes to run for office because I could not deal with it. So I just want to tell you, I am so proud of someone like you and getting to actually get to talk to you and stuff, to have to go through such a hard life-changing experience, because honestly, once you go through that, I don't know how you recoup from it to trust those people again. You know what I mean? I mean, it
Yeah.
takes a lot of praying and
Yeah.
all that
And
stuff. Man,
and
that's
and people even to this day, I'm forever known as a politician. I'm no longer just a regular guy from Detroit or a regular information technology guy. I'm a politician now
well,
in
you're
many people's eyes.
also a military brat, from what I heard. And I'm an Air Force brat. My dad was Air Force, and my grandpa was in the Army. And I've got aunts and uncles and other people in my family that have been in the military. So it does make you a little more, to me, it makes you lean a little more to more of a dog in a hen house kind of thing, where you're not going to give up. You know what I mean? You just get that streak in you or something, because you got to prove to your family that you got what it takes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I kind of have a kinship with others when I find out that they're military brats, because when you have, and I'm not saying living on bases and all that, I mean, having so many family members that were all in the military, the service that they give, and the time away from home, and a good supportive spouse that takes care of the kids and make sure everything's ready for when they come back from deployment, that type of stuff. It instills something different in people, I think.
Yeah.
At least I feel that way when I meet other. I don't know. I just get all giddy when I get to meet veterans and stuff. And a lot of my things that I do in spaces and stuff like that is to support veterans, because I feel that they're one of the people pushed aside when it comes to we need more money and things like that. I always push to raise the funds that we need to help veterans once they're back, to get health care, eye care, dental care, all the stuff that they deserve, because they gave a part of their life for our country. I mean, I really do believe that, and I feel that way. But I'm going to go ahead and pull up one of the first articles that you sent me, and I'll put it up, and then you can just tell us about it. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Right. Great. Thank you so much. Okay, I hope I can do these in order. Oh, terrible. Let's see. Yeah, I think this was the first one, and I'll make it bigger and turn it on when you're ready.
Yeah, so this is an interview with the executive director of Center for Immigration Studies.
Mm-hmm.
He's being interviewed on C-SPAN, the cable channel. And during the interview, he essentially just stated, he was asked a question by the host, just asking him point blank, uh, don't we need immigration? Don't we need to have visas or certain types of workers? And he just answered the question, no, we don't need immigration. We have a third of a billion people in the United States. And then he also was responding to one of the callers, essentially saying that, well, essentially because Trump obviously has changed all of the Biden policies on asylum.
Mm-hmm.
One of the callers was asserting that that every person that shows up to the United States border has a right to claim asylum. Anyone and everyone in the entire world that shows up at the border. And he was just saying, no, just because you say that you want to claim asylum does not mean you have the right to claim asylum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I get a lot of that as far as a misunderstanding in some parts of our country about really the way immigration works. United States Congress wrote the Immigration Nationality Act. And when they wrote it with in mind that the President of the United States, who is the executive in Article 2,
Mm-hmm.
is the final decision maker when it comes to anything related to immigration. And essentially, even in parts of Article 2, it talks about different things related to foreign ministers and other dignitaries who would like to enter the United States. Well, the president, per the U.S. Supreme Court in the Hawaii v. Trump case, the U.S. Supreme Court said, quote, the executive has broad discretion on alien entry, end quote.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that relates to immigration, whether that's birthright citizenship, claiming asylum, the visa lottery, work visas, the border, whatever the case may be, the president of the United States is the decision maker on those things. And even in instances, if United States Congress did not fund one of the agencies, whether Immigration Customs Enforcement, the U.S. The USCIS or the U.S. Customs Border Patrol or the Coast Guard, if for whatever reason Congress did not fund one of those federal departments or agencies within DHS, the president, as he has done, can activate the military and put the military down at the border.
Mm-hmm.
And he's activated the Marines and he's activated U.S. National Guard. So there is no situation where we get a president and then his hands are tied behind his back. And even Stephen Miller today answered a question like this. People were just asserting that the president of the United States cannot make decisions
Mm-hmm.
on one of his own departments, and he quoted the exact sentence that I cited in Article 2. Or actually, I didn't even quote it. It's the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States, singular. One man, one individual has the full power of the executive, and that's why we have presidential elections. That's why we have all that we have in our country because of that. And of course, we're in a Republican form of government. Article 1 is somewhat elected by popular vote, but it is proportioned by the U.S. Census, how much population your state has, and then it's broken up into individual congressional districts. Article 2, elected by the Electoral College.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, that's based on the census, determines how many electorals you get for the Electoral College. And then 3, the judges in the federal district and circuit appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court is appointed by Article 2 and then confirmed by 1/2 of Article 1. So that's the way our country works, and so the executive does get to decide what he wants for his own federal departments or agencies.
Yeah, it sure seems like the Democrats don't agree with us or you or the law, basically, and just constantly get their handpicked judges to rule it whatever way they ask them to. And that's what it takes forever, because everything has to drag through court until we get the Supreme Court to rule and say, you guys are wrong. And then we'll get to do it the way we want to do it, because they've been able to do it for 4 years, and look where it's gotten us. I mean, I have been shocked how much this administration has already been able to get done in 1 month. I mean, I knew it was going to take a while, and we still have, 2 years basically, because we want to get to more help in 2026 to help Trump with his agenda for the last 2 years of his administration. At least I hope. But I've been talking to a few people that said they believe that even after all this stuff coming out with Doge, that some staunch Democrats are still going to vote Democrat, not caring whether it's an independent or a conservative person can actually make differences to help them, because they've been programmed to believe that Republicans want to stop them from having their welfare checks, or stop them from getting the Social Security or medicine and all that. And I don't understand how they can possibly believe that, because look, we're already a month in, and Trump hasn't taken that away from anyone. And he's trying to get the drugs lowered, the prices lowered through the pharmaceutical companies and things like that. And to me, it's sad to think that anyone would think that after everything that's coming out, that these liberals really care about them at all, besides their open wallet. I mean, that's common sense, at least to me. But I'll shut up, and I'll go ahead and push play and let this video play for us. Sorry. Here we go.
And what data do you point to come to that conclusion that we're at a point now in our country's history where we just don't need as much legal immigration?
We're a continent-spanning country with 1/3 of a billion people. We don't actually need any immigration.
Everything.
Just to be clear,
That's my question.
no one has the right to enter the United States without prior permission. No one. Just because you're going to make an asylum claim, that doesn't give you the right to enter the United States. An asylum claim is a defense that an illegal alien makes who has already broken the law about why he shouldn't be returned.
And what data?
See, that was one of the things that I've tried to explain to quite a few people, is the fact that a person who has come over the border just snuck in, not going through a regular area where you would normally go through, where other people are going through, and apply for asylum. Okay, they haven't done that. They snuck over a fence or under a fence or in the back of a truck, knowing they were sneaking in. And I'm not supposed to be able to tell them they're illegal. See, that's the part. One of the things I don't understand, because if it was their family member, okay, that was being hurt because that person broke in their house, robbed them or whatever, then they would want someone to help them. But because it's only happening to other people, they just don't seem, they're able to just say, oh, well, it's not my problem. I don't understand that mentality of people. So I think all of this is going to really make a huge difference on a lot of people. And even the ones that are griping, thinking that Trump is a horrible person because they want to let as many people come into our country as they can. But when the money's gone, nobody gets anything. See, that's another thing I don't understand. To me, the lack of common sense in just everyday people that still think that this kind of stuff should be fine. I don't think they understand the concept of how the country is supposed to work. I mean, we're supposed to be first. People that are born here, that are American citizens, should be first up to any table to get a job, to get medical, to get assistance in a loan to start a business or to go to school or for any disability problems, anything, veterans. The fact that I found out from Doge that's how much money was diverted to illegals away from our veterans. Oh, you don't even want to know what kind of stuff I was saying in my house. I was so upset. That is just like going up to a newborn and just taking everything from them and giving it to a grown man that just snuck over the border. I just don't understand. Anyone thinks that's okay. I just get so livid over it.
And that was my response to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She had put out an X post. She was just making a joke about it, and I responded back to her, and I'm like, look, I don't consider it to be any laughing matter. I mean, a lot of the money that, for example, in Social Security, we won't see that money. We won't get our hands on that money, because you can't touch Social Security. You're only eligible somewhere around the 65-year-old mark or a few years earlier. And then you can't take it all out at one time, and you can't take it out early. So, that money that comes out, once it comes out, it's gone. And that comes out of our payroll checks. I mean, I look at it like U.S. Congress has not done their job. And, and just as in the instance of aliens, Trump just did an executive order stopping aliens from receiving government benefits. We've been lectured for years and decades about how aliens don't receive government benefits or entitlements. Well, guess what? They do. And right there.
I'm loving everything that's coming out. And the thing is that for people like you and I that have been pretty much understood that they were taking money from one area and putting it where it wasn't supposed to go, where it wasn't voted to go, basically. And legally, it shouldn't have went there. Okay, it's being funding something that they couldn't get the funding for because people said no. So they just took it from somewhere else. But the sad fact is they took money out of the piggy bank that people worked really hard to earn for their retirement, for their medications or for whatever it is that they needed to use it for when they would turn 62 or 65, whatever it was they decided to do. And that money's gone now. So it's like, to me, I don't know why any military person at all that has served in the military wouldn't be upset about it. And any person that's paid into the Social Security system, which is pretty much 80% of the country, basically, it's already put money in. It's so funny. I brought this up many times. When you see the first young person, a teenager, and they get their first check and they're so excited, and then they open it and they say, "Who's FICA?" It kills me because they don't understand that part of that money is already taken out of their very first check and to put into a system that they may never get a dime back from. And that's why I'm so glad to see this, because honestly, I never thought I'd see the corruption get cleaned up in my lifetime. But then to know that the future generations, my children and my children's children and my great grandkids are going to have a brighter future simply for the fact we're cleaning it up. And hopefully they understand how it works and they'll be on board to make sure that kind of stuff doesn't happen in their future. And that's what I'm hoping. So more people do it. But I'm going to bring up your next thing that you had sent me. And hopefully we'll get to explain this one. Because, it's pretty interesting. But here you go.
So this is a story about, while we're on the subject of immigration, this is a story about the tech company called Cognitant, and they are essentially a tech staffing firm. And last year, or actually the lawsuit was filed in 2017, alleging discrimination on the basis of essentially giving favoritism to H-1B visas. And so it was filed in 2017. And finally last year in October, the jury ruled in the favor of the plaintiffs, the U.S. citizens that said that they were discriminated against. And it just goes to show that, and this is a topic that that a lot of people are sensitive about H-1B visas or work visas in general. But again, and we'll talk about this in other topics about the importance of income and why U.S. citizens should be given preference over aliens. Aside from the principle, there's many other reasons why this is important. But this here was not. I didn't see any major news stories talking about this, by the way. So
I hadn't heard about it at all.
So this is a pretty big deal, that there was a jury that did say yes, that the tech giant did give favoritism to H-1Bs over U.S. citizens, and there were multiple instances where U.S. citizens either had to move to a different city, or they had to go work on a different contract, and then as soon as they got moved to a different city, or they went on a different contract, they were replaced by an H-1B. And even in one or two companies that I've worked with in the past, many years ago, due to who is the president. And again, I talk about this all the time about how if you get a certain president, companies are going to act differently because that president has different policies on immigration. Then you got different things that are going to happen from a tax perspective, and so the companies would move things around based on who was the president, or Congress, or taxes being cut or taxes being raised. And I've experienced that even throughout my career. I've competed against not only aliens, I've competed against younger U.S. citizens, older U.S. citizens, mid-age. So I could tell you 100% without a shadow of a doubt, H-1Bs or worker visas not only are a detrimental impact on the workforce from a work perspective, but over the long haul, it is just decimating to U.S. citizens, because it affects everything, income they could make, and then that also spills over to other things that we will talk about in relation to families, building a family, starting a family, dating, all of that. This definitely has an impact on it. And these are not just $40,000, $50,000 jobs. Okay, a lot of people don't understand information technology. If you let's say if you are just a beginner in IT, and you decide you want to jump in IT, you want to start an IT career, you apply yourself, you jump in, you take a training course, 6 months, boom, you get a certification, boom, you can go right into the workforce in 1 year's time, making almost $90,000 within the first position that you start, entry level. And and then as you go up and you move up, you've got the potential to make upwards of $150,000 a year, $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year. But that's based on your skill, or what you're able to do with your skills. So this is why this is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. The one thing is that I was told that I could be given a job, probably starting off at $100,000 a year in Washington D.C. And I just said, this is the first thing I said. I said, well, that isn't very much money, is it, to live there and be able to actually, find a place to live and all that with, everything? I'd have to rent, I wouldn't be able to afford to buy a house with that, income, just depending on where you live. Because when I lived in New Orleans, in Metairie, that would have been a ton of money. You know what I mean? So it really does depend on the job and where you're going to be working compared to where you live, where the environment you're living in. So a person that's making $300,000 in California is like a person making $100,000 in Arkansas, or other states. So that it does make a huge difference, especially when it comes to the tech industry, when you're trying to branch out from California and go to other states that are more rural, where it's easier for them to have a family, buy a home, do all those things, because they can do more on that amount of money. And it's IT work. So that means it's a lot of remote work where you can do work here, but it goes for that, company there and there and there, that type of thing. And I've seen a lot of people that said, heck, man, if I could make this money and go back home where my family is at, I would be able to, live well and raise a family and everything else. But that's the hard part, is they expect you to come to a certain place and live in a 1-bedroom, basically 1-bath apartment, and that's all you basically going to be able to afford, because it's outrageous to live there. So I'm hoping that this new administration is going to start working on getting the jobs going again and getting the prices lowered on a lot of things. But that's the hardest thing, is to lower the prices of homes and apartments for people. The food and stuff starts to lower naturally, depending on the resources that are available, gas, the trucking industry, things like that. But it doesn't really affect the insurance rates in your home and, all that, and especially with all the fires and the floods and this really weird freezing cold weather we're getting, all that affects the people that are affected by this, depending on where they're going to be able to move to and get a job. So, it all goes hand in hand, but a lot of people don't think of it that way. They don't look at it, the people that are displaced, and how are they going to find a place now, that type of thing. And then the resources that it takes to put a person on unemployment or other assistance while they're looking for another job because they can't afford to leave, that type of stuff too. So a lot of people don't look at it that way. They don't seem to realize the effects that it has overall. They just looking at the one thing. They're not looking at the families involved in it and the companies, or the environment of the rental, the rentals, the schools. I mean, it's just so much attached, especially if the person does have family or relatives that need to take care of their parent, or, who knows what. But that was a really good article. But okay, I'll bring the next one up for you. Let's see, I think it's this one. Yeah, so this one here. There you go.
And so this one here, and this particular, I'm actually glad we did start off with this one first. So this,
well, I just put them in the order that you sent them to me. So
no, that's fine.
Okay.
So if you could blow it up just a little bit,
here we go.
That way it. Okay. So this gentleman here, this is a video from 2015. If everyone remembers, at that particular time, there were a series of shootings that had occurred that over that summer, with essentially with police and black men. And so I like to just have you to just play the clip, because I think it's probably better to hear it directly from him.
Okay, here we go.
But yeah, if you noticed, this LGBT agenda has made aggressive strides and advancement. I'm talking about Jezebel now. Ahab and Jezebel. In the last 6 years. Think about it. Ever since Ahab showed up to divide and conquer. That's what he's doing. He wants to make it, he wants to pit us against the police. He wants to pit us against white people. He wants to pit us against black people. And why does he do it? Why does he do it? To give Jezebel a throne. who deceived even the prophets with her fornications. Her job is to infiltrate the culture with perversions to break down the system of our morality. Now, if you don't believe me, just look at what the LGBT was using. They were using civil rights. They were equating whatever sense of um, injustice they feel because people don't agree with their sexual orientation and comparing that to being lynched and comparing that to being in slavery
Mm-hmm.
to ought to never have been compared. Civil rights for the LGBT.
And so, what this gentleman is saying, and his name is Prophet Jonathan Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
What he is saying is he was talking about the shootings that were taking place around the country,
Mm-hmm.
and what he was saying is these shootings that we were seeing at that time was uh, really laying a table out for uh, all of the strife and the division that we were seeing. But prior to that, prior to 2015, if people remember, uh, the LGBTQ had started their push of really just propaganda. It started inside of the American Psychiatric Association. They changed the, let's just say, the definition inside of the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, which is the DSM manual for mental disorders. And so they made this terminology change, essentially, calling whether LGBTQ, lesbian, bisexual, gay, transgender, queer, whatever the case may be, instead of calling that a mental disorder, they started to call it a gender identity disorder. And so when they did that in 2013, of course, the Obergefell case was making its way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in the Obergefell ruling,
Mm-hmm.
not only did they legalize gay marriage, they also provided a uh, gender identity pathway for transgenders. A lot of people are not aware of this, that case of Obergefell actually laid the groundwork
Mm-hmm.
for transgenders. All the things that you saw over those years, we remember the kids that were that terribly were raped inside of Loudoun County. All the things that we saw in relation to uh, uh, men and women's sports, all those different things that we saw that happened, it happened because of the Obergefell decision. So,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what that video is about. And this here, this start of Obergefell and uh, men going into women's bathrooms, men taking over women's sports, pronouns, and all these other things. That was the kickoff to what we're currently seeing now inside the church. The
Mm-hmm.
church, uh, and this really applies to any denomination. I don't. It didn't matter if it was Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, Pentecostal, non-denominational, whether that was Latter Day Saints, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
The church was softening their message because of the Obergefell decision. There were pastors and ministers that were changing what they were saying to the congregation in just subtle ways. And so over time, we began to see that there were less couples getting together. There were less men at the church. You were starting to see, things like a bisexual or gay praise and worship leader. You saw all these different things that occurred because of the Obergefell decision. And as the church began to change, then we started to, and of course, you had what you had with the with people not coming together to create families. Then that began to create a problem with our men and women out on the dating market. And so there's a professor, and again, this professor is, and actually, it's one of the links that I sent you. We probably should open it.
Yeah, let me get that one. Hold on just a second. Let's see it. I think is it the one
CNN YouTube link?
Oh, it's a YouTube link. Okay, hold on. Well, I'm not seeing that one. Hold on. Is this? No, this is Trump. Hold on. I think it's the other one. Give me one sec. I always click on the wrong ones. I don't know why I do that. It's like the one that's the farthest from me is the right one. I think this one. Let's see if this is it. Is this it? Right here?
No, that's not it. So let me see if I can put.
Okay, if you can share it with me at the bottom, I will share it because these are the ones I put them in order I thought.
That's the one that I just sent it to you.
Okay, let me go back over there and get it. It's in the private chat, so give me 1 second. Oh, please pause it. Okay, that's one thing. All right, now, perfect. I don't remember seeing that one. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, here we go.
And so the Democrats, this video here, this is the Democrats literally saying, "Are men okay? Or do we have a problem?" Go ahead. You can roll the clip.
Okay, here we go.
Week I delved here into recent data from the CDC suggesting major problems with regard to the mental health of our adolescents, surges in depression and suicidal ideation, especially true for our girls. This week, I found cause to worry about young men. This headline from The Hill, it caught my eye. Most young men are single. Most young women are not. The story reported that as of 2022, Pew Research Center found 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly half of all young adults are single. Now, look at these numbers. 34% of women, twice as many, a whopping 63% of men. What explains that? I pulled the Pew study and I read with interest. Turns out since 2019, the share of single men who say they're looking for dates or a relationship has declined from 61% to 50%. In 2018, 28% of men ages 18 to 30 reported they'd had no sex in the past year, compared with 18% of women of that age. The Hill report said men in their 20s are more likely than women in their 20s to be romantically uninvolved, sexually dormant, friendless, and lonely. They stand at the vanguard of an epidemic of declining marriage, sexuality, and relationships that afflicts all of young America. Among the causes, among the factors, a reliance on social media and online porn. But also, more young women are hooking up with each other or dating and marrying slightly older men, and heterosexual women are getting more choosy. Other troubling statistics about men come from a 2021 study from the Survey Center for American Life. They found the share of men who have 6 or more close friends, which in 1990 was 55%, by 2021 had shrunk by half. Meanwhile, those with literally 0 close friends, which stood at 3% in 1990, has zoomed to 15%. An expert quoted by The Hill said this disconnect can have catastrophic consequences for young men. Quote, in the worst case scenario, the young American man's social disconnect can have tragic consequences. Young men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. Younger women are largely responsible for rising rates of mass shootings, a trend that some researchers link to their growing social isolation. Well, those words reminded me of a conversation that I
want to step in for just a second on this. Okay, I am a nerd. Okay, I go to Comic-Cons and I play Dungeons and Dragons. It's a board game. Well, it's not a board game, but it's a role-playing game, and we play online and we roll dice and we interact, stuff like that. And a lot of the friends that I have are guys, and a lot of them, they just say, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the effort, okay, to have a relationship, because they're either going to, before they even start, they already think, well, there's no reason for me to. They're not interested. They're not going to be interested. You know, that kind of thing. They have an attitude that girls, because the girls they see are the ones on Instagram, OnlyFans, you know, swipe left, swipe right, all these apps, which I don't agree with. I don't use any apps like that. And there's no going to the bowling alley or to the movie theater or to other places to meet people anymore. You know, it's getting more and more rare to just meet someone and say, hey, let's go out, let's go have dinner, or let's go for a walk. You know, it's been time together as one-on-one to get to know someone. Now they don't even want to make the effort because they feel like, why bother? They're not going to be interested. Look at them, they're too pretty, or they're famous, or whatever, you know, the Instagram famous, you know, that type of stuff. And I see a lot of that.
And now he's going to get to the why, which is the larger issue.
Okay, here we go.
I had over a year ago, right here on CNN, with NYU professor Scott Galloway.
But the issue is,
Can we pause
when you
right
have
here?
a group of men,
Okay.
the lower half of attractiveness of men and online dating, which
Go ahead.
So now I just want everybody to understand, Scott Galloway is a radical left Democrat. He is a NYU professor. Okay. So this is not a Trumper. This is not somebody from CPAC. This is not somebody off of Newsmax or War Room. This is a radical left Democrat who goes on CNN's, the MSNBC's. Go ahead. You can roll.
Okay.
has doubled. Now it's about half of relationships. And the top 20% of men in terms of attractiveness get about 60% of the interest. You end up with a group of men that are more prone to conspiracy theory, more prone to misogynistic content, more prone to not believe in climate change. So this is the American story. If it's written with a pen whose ink is failing young men, does not end well. This is an existential crisis, failing young men.
As always, Professor Galloway was prescient. Back with me now is Scott Galloway. He's a professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's the host of the Professor G podcast and author of multiple best-selling books, most recently, Adrift, America in 100 Charts. Scott, thanks for returning. Hasn't the advantage always been to those with the looks and or the money? What's changed?
First off, Michael, I just want to say thank you for raising this issue a year ago when a lot of media companies were afraid to talk about this for fear of it being pro-men with somehow being anti-women. Look, this is returning to the natural order of things. For the majority of history, a small percentage of men have had the majority of the mating opportunities. But in America, we decided to make a huge investment in what would probably be the greatest innovation in history, and that is in the middle class. From 1945 to 1947, 7 million men returned from war, were discharged from the service, and we decided to give them the GI Bill, subsidized mortgages. We saw education rates go from 5 to 45%. They were valued, and we had such a strong manufacturing base that you had massive marriage and household formation. And some men were seen as more economically and emotionally viable. And you've seen the reverse happen with the offshoring of much of our manufacturing base, with a society that, quite frankly, doesn't value young men. When we talk about problems with people of color or women, we see it as a systemic societal problem.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So this right here, by us making the decision to create all of these different visas and pass the Immigration Nationality Act and
Mm-hmm.
offshore the jobs to other countries, it has now created a country where men are starting to not be economically viable. The problem with that is, while yes, women may be filling some other jobs, but
Mm-hmm.
when you don't have men that can be economically viable or that can earn income, that means they're going to be less likely to start a family. They're going to be less likely to date. And then now I'll let the video continue, because the next larger point of this is coming.
When we see problems or the stats that you just mentioned, we see it as accountability, or the men just need to level up. But married households and household formation are better citizens. They vote, they save at twice the rate, they're less likely to commit crimes, and we have fewer and fewer viable men. We have a dearth of economically and emotionally viable men. But the middle class is an accident. Unless you invest in it, it doesn't happen. Eisenhower decided to invest $500 billion in a national highway project that created tons of jobs. We have, and by the way, the tax rate back then was 91%. We raised money and we redistributed in social programs that made young people more economically viable.
And then, Scott, you toss in the influence of social media and how relationships today, they don't come from, in our era, happenstance and mingling, right? They come from swiping, and that further accelerates this issue. Am I right?
Oh, it's been the chaser to it. I mean, to have an honest conversation about this, we have to be honest, and that is that men and women have different mating criteria. One quarter of men saying economic viability is a key criteria in a mate. 3/4 of women say that is important. And when you're on a two-dimensional format, where now it's 1 and 2 relationships begin online, it used to be 1.
3/4 of women say that economic viability is the number one thing that they look for in a mate. Mm-hmm. So when you have men that are no longer being as economically viable as they could be, even at at the average rate, that creates a vacuum where you have men who essentially are priced out of the dating market. Mm-hmm. They're priced out of starting a family. They're priced out of owning a home. And this is the real consequence. But this video, this is in 2022. The first, the other video we saw of the prophet, that was in 2015.
2015. Mm-hmm.
So it only took 7 years to go from, which even prior to that, the Obergefell decision was decided in 2015, but they started the process in 2013. Mm-hmm. So it only took a matter of 7 or 9 years to now get to this point that we're in now. So, and yes, the visas, that's always been the case for many decades, but it didn't have legs until the LGBTQ got the Obergefell decision, because then you started to see changes in the way that people consider men in positions of leadership. It changed the church. It changed a whole bunch of things. So this is all the consequence of what we're experiencing now. And really, I say all this to say that Obergefell in the U.S. Supreme Court, it needs to be overturned, because once Trump leaves office, if God forbid, a rhino gets into office and rolls back Trump's policies on many of the things that he's done an executive order on in regards to not allowing transgenders not allowing men in women's sports, not allowing the military to transgenderize the military, not allowing the LGBTQ flag to be flown above the U.S. embassy. These things have a huge impact and a detrimental effect on the country and on men as a whole.
Yeah, I definitely can. Like I was saying, a lot of the things that I was saying that I've seen or I felt was happening is exactly what he was saying. So I was shocked. He agreed with some of the things I was thinking. So do you want me to keep going now?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's pretty much zeroed in on the point that I wanted.
So you don't want me to play the rest of it?
Yeah, we could just you can go ahead if you like.
Go ahead. I mean, it's up to you because we can go on to the next thing.
Yeah, we can go on to the next one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do this one. All right. Let me close that. All right. And the next one that I had, let's see, was I guess the one with Trump on it, or this one. This is the one right here. This one that you had sent.
Yes. So if you blow that up just a little bit.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. Oh, let's see. I don't know how to make it bigger.
Oh, okay.
I really don't. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. That's okay. So what this is this is a list of 10 sources on how legalizing gay marriage.
So click on this
in Obergefell. I believe that link. You can try clicking on that. I don't think that link.
It says christianforarizona.com.
Oh yeah, that's just my website, so it'll just go back to my website. But that link there takes people to a ton of other links. It's a Twitter, it's an X thread, and it's just a various sources on how we got to this point of transgenders affecting our country.
Yeah. Okay. Well, definitely all of this stuff. It was like this last administration was strategically trying to tear apart families. Okay, because when you have two males or two females as a family, unless they adopt, okay, they're not going to have more kids. They're going to adopt a couple of dogs or cats or whatever, but they're not going to produce offspring. Okay. So we've seen a huge decline, and in the health problems and things that we've had in the last 5 years, that we've seen a huge rise in cancers and all types of different things. It has nothing to do with being gay or a lesbian or whatever, but all of this colliding all at the same time is definitely going to be a detriment, and we're going to see it for years and years to come. I really do believe. So I'll stop sharing this and go to the next one that I have up here. Give me 1 second. This one right here with Trump that was in it right here.
Yes. So now this brings us to President Trump. But backing up, so in the Obergefell decision, the activists, the LGBTQ activists, used the 14th Amendment. Of course, the prophet mentioned they used civil rights. Well, it was the 14th Amendment was what they were using to provide the LGBTQ what they got in that final ruling of the U.S. Supreme Court. And so what has happened now? So we started off talking about aliens and illegal aliens. Well, when they go to court, they're seeking to claim the 14th Amendment. When the LGBTQ goes to court, they're seeking to claim the 14th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
When unions go to court, they're seeking to claim the 14th Amendment. So, so the 14th Amendment, it no longer has its purpose. It's lost its purpose. And not many people in our country are not aware of the full history of the 14th Amendment. Of course, um, so for example, today President Trump, and what we're looking at is an older video of President Trump, and I'll explain why we're going to play that. But today, President Trump had a Black History Month event at the White House, and he had hundreds of people there. And President Trump actually dropped a piece of information that I didn't know. He let us know that as of right now, we have the most Black Republicans in the U.S. House that we've ever had since 1870. And
Wow.
so what is 1870? Why is 1870 so important? Well, you go back in history, Abraham Lincoln in the 1860s, he does the Emancipation Proclamation, and then he's of course it begins the process of moving the country to abolish slavery. He's assassinated, and then after he's assassinated, he has disciples in United States Congress that carry the torch forward. And so you have James Mitchell Ashley, Ohio Republican, the author of the 13th Amendment. You have John A. Bingham, the author of the 14th Amendment. John A. Bingham is also the author of the 15th Amendment. And then, by the way, John A. Bingham is a Ohio Republican. And then you have Samuel Schallenberger, who is also a Ohio Republican that authored the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, which is actually today known as Section 1983. Section 1983 is the civil action against the deprivation of rights. That is what is used by all of these groups, LGBTQ, aliens, unions, all these groups, climate change activists, they use Section 1983, which is a civil action against the deprivation of rights. Section 1983 enforces the 14th Amendment. So we've lost the total purpose of the 14th Amendment was not to protect aliens. It was not to protect, not to give birthright citizenship. It was not for unions. It was not for the LGBTQ. It was not for climate change. The 14th Amendment was to ensure that the states or the former Confederate states would not violate the equal protection and due process rights of former slaves, and also ensure that those former slaves kept their U.S. citizenship. That was the purpose of the 14th Amendment. And then, of course, over time, the 14th Amendment was essentially the, let's just say, the gold standard of criminal justice law.
Yeah.
The 14th Amendment, due process, equal protection. And, you know, it helped people who had issues inside of the criminal justice system. And
haven't
so,
they used it for women's rights too?
yeah, they've been used.
The whole pussy hat parade people. I remember them saying that all the time.
I left out abortion.
Mm-hmm.
In Roe v. Wade, they created legal framework to essentially uh, get or obtain the Roe v. Wade decision. And by the way, for those of you who did not watch the Dobbs decision or the Dobbs oral argument, in the Dobbs oral argument, if you haven't listened to it or went back and just watched the audio, go ahead and do it. They've got video of the audio up, or you can find the audio out there on the internet. Clarence Thomas, at one point in this oral argument, he poses the question to Joe Biden's Solicitor General and asks Joe Biden's Solicitor General, can you tell me what part of the 14th Amendment gives a right to an abortion? Is it a right to privacy? Is it a right to due process? Is it equal protection? Is it this? Is it that? And Joe Biden's Solicitor General could not answer the question. And then it goes back over to Neil Gorsuch. And Neil Gorsuch said, Solicitor General, can you tell us what part of the 14th Amendment provides a right to an abortion? She couldn't answer the question. And then it goes back to Clarence Thomas again. And Clarence Thomas asks again, what part of the 14th Amendment provides a right to an abortion? She couldn't answer the question. And that is why Roe v. Wade was overturned. That sequence right there is how we got to where we are with Roe v. Wade. But yes, you're absolutely right about abortion and the 14th Amendment. That's what they used. So now.
Wait, what's really scary is now we have a Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court justice that can't even under oath, when they were asking her this question, define what's a woman. So
yes,
that's a scary. I mean, you think about it, from all this time that we've had the Constitution, that we now have a judge that's on the Supreme Court for her life until she chooses to step down, that can't tell you what is a woman. And she's going to be, voting on things that affect women. I just think that's sad.
And the only reason why she can't answer that question is because of the Obergefell decision. That's why she can't answer the question.
It's a scary thought, though.
So now, so we talked about the history, the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, Section 1983. Well, since the passing of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, and so let's go back. So 1860s, and then you've got right around 1865, you've got the 13th and 14th Amendment together, then the 15th Amendment, and then the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 leading into 1871. Approximately 10 years later, the American Bar Association is created. The American Bar Association has been this, let's just say, arm of the Democrat Party. And the ABA is used in every single court, every single city, every single county, every single state, every single federal U.S. district court. And they're essentially pushing their agenda inside the court, inside criminal courts, inside civil courts. And so what has happened is the Ohio Republicans passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. They passed the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1971. And in comes the American Bar Association, and they're just like, we're going to wipe out what you guys have done. So now you have over 160 years where the country has been under the reign of the American Bar Association. Not the 14th Amendment, not the true definition of the 14th Amendment, or the 13th Amendment or the civil action against the defamation of rights.
Yeah.
You have now what you have is the ABA and their agenda. And so during Trump's presidency, of course, we're very familiar with all the different cases that President Trump has withstood. You know,
Mhm.
the Crossfire Hurricane, the Rosenstein Mueller scam,
Mhm.
then the Ukraine impeachment scam. Then, then sometime in between, it was the Emoluments Clause and the Hatch Act. Then it was the January 6th scam. Then after that, it's the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Then it's the Colorado, we're going to remove you off the ballot. All these, I'm probably even leaving out one case.
Yeah, the one the he supposedly had a document that millions of people sign every year, which is a non-disclosure document that Stormy Daniels signed.
Yeah.
And they tried to say it was a hush money case, which I was like, you got to be kidding. How is this even standing up in court? I've
Right.
signed like 6 of them just to do stuff on movies. Okay. To do certain kinds of work, you have to sign a non-disclosure to say that I won't give away the script or I won't give away this or that. And the fact that she lost and is supposed to have paid him like $300,000, the whole thing with that Michael Avenatti that's in prison right now for fraud. And none of that mattered. That's why I was so shocked that they even took it to court. It was ridiculous and a laughingstock. But honestly, a lot of young people that are interested in law watched this whole thing unfold and they were like, this is messed up. And they realized that one day that could be them. So I think it opened a lot of eyes, even though it was a horrible, experience for our president at the time, to go through all that. And the lucky part is that he has the money to fight back. Every day, you and I type people would be saying, oh, well, we would have lost our house and everything else to try to pay our way through the lawfare, So,
Right.
and not realizing how many people were probably, raped by lawyers for years, simply by using different things against us, knowing that we couldn't afford to fight back. And that's a sad fact. We've got to bring justice back to our country and make people feel like I can trust the court, to stand up for me. So,
right. Which now brings me to my larger point, which is U.S. Congress needs to do many things in relation to this because of what has happened to the 14th Amendment with aliens, the LGBTQ, abortion, climate change, all these other different things. Congress need to repeal Joe Biden's 1994 Clinton crime bill. They need to repeal also Heck v. Humphrey. And I won't go into all the details with Heck v. Humphrey, but essentially Heck v. Humphrey paralyzes the original intent of the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, which essentially allows you to enforce the 14th Amendment. They need to strengthen, I just mentioned that, which is the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. They need to strengthen Section 1983. They need to remove the Heck v. Humphrey requirement from the U.S. Supreme Court. They need to pass the Second Step Act. They passed the First Step Act in 2018. They need to pass the Second Step Act. They need to repeal Biden's RICO Act. Where we remember the RICO charges came against President Trump and many of people across the states. They were using the RICO Act. They need to repeal the RICO Act. And then they need to create an ongoing task force on state and federal prosecutor misconduct on the American Bar Association and the state bars. An ongoing task force that investigates this at all levels.
Yeah, I've seen Pam Bondi already having a few conversations about reforming a lot of areas of things that are going on with our judicial system. Same thing with each of the people that I've seen so far in his cabinet, which I've been very impressed with, because I've been surprised on the people he actually chose to be on his cabinet, from all the different areas, from housing development, through agriculture, because I've been airing all the stupid questions that the Senate has been asking them that had nothing to do with any of their jobs. All Trump syndrome, basically. You're just going to be a rubber stamp for Trump to, do this, that, and the other, instead of asking them actual questions that have to do with the job they're going to be taking in. So they're just filled with hate. So it's going to be really hard to really get them to work together to save our country and get it back on its feet to where we can be self-sustainable again. Because to me, a strong America has to be self-sustainable, where we can take care of ourselves, whether it comes to the law and the whole thing, like you were saying about the citizen birthright thing. There's no other country that even does that. You can go to Norway and all these other countries, even Mexico. You can't just go over there and have a baby and say, oh, I got a Mexican baby, now I can have land here or whatever. It doesn't work that way. I think we're one of the only countries in the world that still allow people to come here, have a baby, and say that it's an American citizen.
And what has the media been saying about birthright citizenship? What have they been saying?
They're saying that if they have a baby here, they should be able to stay here.
But what does the media keep saying? They keep saying it over and over and over. They say
I don't. They say so much. I don't know. I can't remember.
Trump is trying to change the Constitution. He's trying to change the 14th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
No. If you read the executive order that Trump wrote ending birthright citizenship, he's quoting the federal law, which is the Immigration Nationality Act. In the federal law, under 8 USC, it actually stipulates who is allowed to have or receive US citizenship. And guess what? If you're not a citizen, or if you haven't been naturalized in the United States, you are essentially subject to the president of the United States, because you don't have all the rights of a U.S. citizen or a person that's been naturalized.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, all Trump's order says is, I am directing my agencies and departments to discontinue issuing citizenship to anyone who doesn't fit that criteria under federal law. Trump is going to win that case in the U.S. Supreme Court easily.
Well, I understand that. I really do believe that he's going to win. But the one thing I'm trying to understand is many times, because I had a lot of friends from New Orleans that work for the ambulance services. And many times there'll be a lot of people down in the quarter or just shopping, tourists, on a trip, to the zoo and some other things. And they're not from our country. And who knows exactly, because it's a big tourist town, and they're pregnant and they give birth. Well, guess what they get when they're at the hospital with a baby in their arms? A birth certificate. So how are you gonna be able to figure out who gets a birth certificate and who doesn't in all of the big cities and smaller towns in the United States? That's going to be a lot of work to figure out how to do that.
Yeah,
and stop these people from just handing out birth certificates.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about the 14th Amendment and all the things that Congress needs to do from a criminal justice perspective, back in June 2018, Trump actually proposed a question to all NBA and NFL players. And
really?
Not a lot of people remember this, but he did propose this.
Oh, so go ahead and play the video?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Thinking to do You have a lot of people in the NFL in particular, but in sports leagues, they're not proud enough to stand for our national anthem. I don't like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say to them, instead of talk, it's all talk, talk, talk. We have a great country. You should stand for our national anthem. You shouldn't go in a locker room when our national anthem is played. I am going to ask all of those people to recommend to me, because that's what they're protesting, people that they think were unfairly treated by the justice system. And I understand that. And I'm going to ask them to recommend to me people that were unfairly treated, friends of theirs or people that they know about. And I'm going to take a look at those applications. And if I find, and my committee finds that they're unfairly treated, then we will pardon them or at least let them out. You know, I don't have to do that. I'm not looking to grandstand. We got enough grandstanders in this town. I'm just saying, for the leagues, if they have people, if the players, if the athletes have friends of theirs or people that they know about that have been unfairly treated by the system, let me know.
Okay.
Well, you know, if you think about it, that becomes celebrity advocates. But they know a lot of
So
things that we're not going to know.
so Trump gave an open invitation to the entire NBA and NFL. And you want to know what they did? They went
I don't watch sports. I'm sorry.
They went to the New York Times and wrote an editorial against President Trump. That's what they did.
The
After
players or the team owners, you know what I mean?
The players.
Okay.
Because, you know, of course, the leagues are in the pockets of the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So they got the players to sign off on a editorial against President Trump. And so the leagues never, to my knowledge, I never heard Trump say that the leagues got back to him or any players got back to him.
Mm-mm.
And so now, go ahead.
No, I haven't heard that any of that stuff. But, you know, I don't watch sports. But if Trump had done a press conference and talked about it, then I would have heard that. Now, I did hear some of this interview right here earlier in a couple spaces I was in, because they were, you know, people that were pissed off about the team. So, and I've heard a lot of the stuff about the booing from the hockey team about our anthem. So, you know, that's a lot of disrespect for someone's country. And I don't think anyone should be acceptable. Now, to me, just for me, who I am, if I'd seen that, I would have said, well, I'm not going to any of their games. If they're going to disrespect my flag. Now, I know it works because look what happened to Bud Light.
Yeah.
If people stand up for what they believe, you can make a difference. But the thing is, when the men that I know that have, you know, into football, back when they took a knee or whatever it was for, I don't remember, because, you know, I really am not into sports, but they remember saying that they took a knee during the anthem. So they said they weren't going to watch the football games. They were going to start watching college ball or whatever that means. You know, I'm not into it. But how many months went by and they were watching it again? And I said, I thought you weren't going to, you're going to boycott. And they said, well, I'm not watching the opening anymore. And I said, oh, wow.
Yeah. So now, since the players in the NBA and NFL did not get back to Trump with a list of names, now Trump in his second term has enlisted Alice Johnson to be the pardon czar. So now Alice is going to give Trump names for him to pardon.
Okay, well, that's good. But did he receive any names at all?
No, there's been no. There has been. I've seen absolutely nothing. I've talked about this multiple times since 2018. I brought this up many times. I never heard a word about anything like that.
are they still doing this during the anthem, or are they not doing it anymore?
They're not kneeling during the anthem.
Mhm.
The NFL is trying to they're trying to get away from what they were doing back during those years,
Yeah.
2017, when they were doing some of the things that they were doing, 2016, 2015. They're trying to get away from some of the propaganda, but they just started this. For years, they had Black Lives Matter on the field. They had Black Lives Matter on the back of the helmets, and so they had been doing still a lot of those things, inserting some of their politics into some of the games and some of the coverage.
Do you think
And
that Doge finding all this money that's been spent on all these things, and if they find out that a lot of the money was spent on some of this type of stuff, do you think that they'll stop going to the teams and saying, we're going to do this, that, and the other by putting this on your hat and that, because there's no money? The money's gone, the free paycheck, or not?
I'm not even sure if Doge would even, if any of the things that they would even be looking into would even include the sports teams. But what I will say is, I think that even with the NFL and NBA not getting back to Trump, he did end up doing other things that intersected with some of the entertainment culture. He pardoned Lil Wayne. He pardoned a couple of other people that I'm forgetting that their names that are in music and entertainment. And so, I mean, I just think that this Trump going back to the public and saying, okay, you guys want to kneel, you guys want to be criminal justice advocates. Okay, let's put your money where your mouth is. Give me some names, and really, frankly, Congress should be advocating this. Congress should be saying, let's have a hearing on people that you think have been unfairly treated in the justice system. Bring the names forward. Again, these are things that Congress are supposed to be doing.
They're not doing it because they don't want to get blamed for it. Why not just let Trump take all the blame, and then we'll just stand here and act like, see, it wasn't us. And that's where we come in play, because we in our states and our local communities have to start making our people that we put in office and start holding them accountable to follow through on what they told us they were going to do for us in our state. Because once we get our states back and into the place where we asked them to be, because we voted them in, or we're going to get rid of them to help Trump to be successful. And if they're not going to do it, then we need to get rid of them as soon as we can and put somebody in that wants to do it. But that's on us again. See? And I pushed in the spaces. Sign up to work the polls. Sign up to be a poll watcher. Sign up to help other people that are running for office that say the things that you believe in and help them. This was our way of being able to take back our city councils and our school systems and everything. It's on us. And if we just sit back and take a knee, like you were saying, and expect someone else to do it just to make a statement, we're not fixing anything.
Exactly. And that's the larger issue, which Trump had said, that it's literal or literal entertainment advocacy or public advocacy. But that's what it takes. And these Republicans that are inside of the GOP, I got news for these Republicans. Okay. You think that these voters that are in Detroit, Wayne County, Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, Philadelphia and Philadelphia County, and Atlanta and Fulton County, if you and Allegheny County back up in Pennsylvania, if you think that's the Pittsburgh area, if you think that these voters who voted for Trump are going to just hand you their votes without you being Trump America first, you're you're delusional. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And all these issues that we're seeing, birthright citizenship, the border, giving benefits to aliens, the waste inside the government. If you think that you're going, if you're going to run as a Republican on a ballot, and you're not going to have these positions that Trump has, it ain't gonna happen. And especially all those folks that are gonna try to run in 2028 for president behind Trump, you know, whether it's any other Republican, JD Vance, if you don't have Trump's positions, you're not getting in. They're not all those black people that voted for Trump in Atlanta, Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, they're not Pittsburgh, they're not gonna vote for you. They will let you fall off the cliff. They're not changing. And by the way, we didn't see this huge uptick of new registered voters. These were existing voters already on the rolls that voted for Trump. And some of these Republicans, they were on the coattails of Trump. But a lot of these Republicans think that they're just going to jump on the coattails of Trump. It's not going to work that way. You are not going to inherit the America First MAGA base without being America First.
Well, see, that's what I've been telling people, that once I moved to Arkansas, I started going to as much as I could when Sarah Huckabee decided to run for governor. And I was in one of her little commercials on Instagram, and I would go to all her events, as many as I could, to meet her husband, her best friend, because her best friend and her husband's best friend travel with them, with their spouses, a lot when they were on the campaign trail and stuff. And they're just awesome. But I just love her. I think she's done a really good job so far, especially when she had some health problems and stuff. But that's what we need. We need people that are fighting for the people of the state that they're in and following through on what they said they were going to do. Once you have a president that goes in there and everything at every rally they went to and stuff, or other functions, and they say, this is what the people said they wanted me to do, and this is what I'm doing. And then have someone else come in that says, well, all that stuff back to that again. That's not going to happen. People, once they get something, just like, your eyes are open, you're out of the matrix now. You're looking around, you're realizing, hey, this is real life. You're not going to close your eyes and go back in, let them plug you in again. You can't go back once you've opened your eyes and you're seeing freedom. You want more freedom. You want to be able to have more in your pocket, more in your purse, all the different things that they've already done in 1 month. It's going to be really hard for someone else to step in and do the same thing, unless they have the same type of thing on their agenda and they're working hands in hand with the people. I mean, that's what we want. And I'm loving it so far. I really am. And that Cash got in today, I was like, yeah. And I did that live. I showed him getting voted in because I'm all into it. I'm really been impressed with his new cabinet choices and stuff. And I can't wait to see all of them get into town, and doing some stuff. And I'm really, really impressed that Trump is set for 4 years thinking, what am I going to do when I get in again? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I have this team. And they're all younger too. So I'm liking that. The young bloods coming in and all chomping at the bit to fix this country and try to get back to the pride that we used to have, that I thought I had when I was a little girl, a military brat with my hand over my heart saying the pledge. I want to get back to that. I want to feel like that in here for my country. And I do. When I see Trump and his new cabinet, I feel proud. that I am a conservative in America. I mean, that's how I feel. And I cried, boy, when he lost and Biden won. I was just heartbroken because I knew we were in for a hurt. And man, I hated being right, but yeah, I'm so thankful we dodged the bullet of that administration again, and we got a chance. And hopefully, a lot of people felt the same way as me. That's why he won in a landslide for popular vote and electoral college. So. Yeah, I'm just happy. I'm just really happy about it.
Yeah, and just like
your ideas that you have you like put something together and like tried to send it in to this new administration and see if they would, because I'm sure they're open to looking at stuff because they sure have been pretty open about asking questions and trying to get information. And I just heard that RFK Jr. is making a website for to gather information from vaccine injured people. So we're getting starting to see these people hit the ground running and setting up their own teams to do the things that Trump said. Like when he did his TV show, he'd bring the people in and said, "What are you going to do for me? How are you going to do it?" And he expect them to sit down and tell them, and then, or he'd say, "You're fired. Get rid of them." So him bringing these people in and setting them up and letting them bring in their own people, to get that job done. I'm hoping. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. But I think that your ideas are really good and that you should submit something to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and that, that part of it to see who can go in there and maybe make some changes.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about submitting anything to Trump's new administration.
I think you should.
But
I think they're open. I think they will listen to it. Definitely.
Yeah, If I find a place to properly get it submitted, I will send it in to them.
Good.
Yep.
I would like to hear about that after you get a response back.
Yeah.
That'd be great. But I want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight. We've been going for an hour, over an hour and a half. And I'm so thankful that you said yes, because I knew it would be interesting. And because I always love listening to you in spaces. I think you're very smart. And I have been sharing your links, your 4 links that you sent me for your Instagram, your TikTok, and for your, X. And I've been sharing that in the chat. So it'll be in the chat. So when people watch it later on, it'll still be in there. So they'll still be able to get your links. But I just want to say thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add before we close down?
No, nothing else I'd like to add. I would just say, I look forward to the next 3 to almost 4 years that we will have for Trump. That was the whole reason why I ran for office in 2022 was to make sure that Trump was reelected in 2024. And even when I got on the executive committee to make sure Trump was elected. So I can consider it mission accomplished that he's in the White House and he's getting it done. He's not wasting time. He's not taking any prisoners. He's not leaving anything on the table. And he's leaving it all out on the floor. So I'm very happy with that. And the only other thing I like for Trump to do at this point is to get those visas, those work visas suspended so that we can protect the U.S. worker jobs. But other than that, he's checked every single box that I wanted him to check for this presidency within the first month.
I know, it's shocking. We're not used to it. We're not used to seeing a president that day and night he's working. We're used to seeing someone that we never see, we never hear from. And I like the fact that Trump likes to talk. He likes to talk about what he's doing. And it's like he's on ever-ready batteries or something. I wish I had a little of it to keep it going. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. And I just think you're awesome. And I can't wait to hear from you in spaces again.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for having me on. This was great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I will share the link because this was on Rumble, X, and YouTube. So I'll share the
Awesome.
links with you once, like tomorrow, once they're up and, up on there, and then you can do whatever you need to with them. But
Thank you.
thank you so much, and God bless America, everyone. I'm so happy we live here, and I just love this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
First off, let me convey to my family, friends, and supporters that now is not the time to gloat. We must remember that most of our left-leaning friends are good people who want the same things in life as we do, but simply think differently on how to get there. It is now time to be the bigger man, to extend an olive branch and unite all reasonable people of this great nation. God has blessed America, and together with President Trump, we will make America great again.